can start actually. So let me start the streaming.
Okay, but I don't have.
Yeah, 1 second. So yeah, 1 second. I'll just start. Well, okay, I give it to you. Ja, een momentje.
Ja, als we nog niet online zijn, dan 1 minuut.
Ja. Here you go.
Awesome.
When I studied here many years ago, we had a class every Monday morning at 9 o'clock. We had to sit and we had to practice this. You too?
We had it, yeah.
Until,
Reading plans, yeah.
yeah, rhythm class. On Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Oh, he's a master.
No, we were practicing this just 2 minutes ago. Brain practice.
Yes, so very lovely to have you here, and hello to the students and teachers online. I'm seeing that the team sessions are very popular, also for the thuisblijvers. And it's the 4th day of our listening week. We've had so many wonderful experiences already, and today Michael Moore was working with 2 student groups in a very wonderful way, so this continues. We have now Mijke Loeven, Bimhuis director. Bimhuis is really, without exaggerating, one of Europe's most important promoters, concert promoters. They have a very varied program, fantastic, always focusing on quality. Please consult their website as well. It's very well explained, their history. And it's also special to have Mijke here because she studied here as a jazz singer. So welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's lovely to be here. Every corner of this building is still in my system. I've been living here for about 6 years. I learned a lot. And at times I was very unhappy as well. And it all has to do with the art of listening, I think, what my talk is about. So my name is Mijke Loeven. I'm the director of the Bimhuis, which is of course a huge privilege and an honor. How many of you have been at the Bimhuis already? Good, good. You know you get a discount, right, as a student? So please, when this whole...
Even now with the only 30...
Oh yeah, no, with the COVID stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Somebody's asking if there's a korting, discount at the COVID stuff. No, we cannot do that, and we hate it, because now we can only present a program for 30 people. So this, yeah, it's a terrible situation. I'm going to talk to you about many stuff that is important in a normal situation, but this morning when I woke up, I thought of Corona and how difficult it must be for your generation. I really feel very sad for you, for my own daughters. They're 23 and I see them suffer every day. And I also worry about the situation in the United States. Many jazz musicians from living in Brooklyn, they fear a civil war and they're very frightened. So our whole art community is under great pressure. So I really feel sorry about that. And I have to begin my talk with this situation because it would be very strange not to talk about it. I hope that you will all give me, send me questions and participate. Feel free, please. All right. I would like to start with a typical night at the Bimhuis. BC, before Corona. I'm sure you will like him, huh?
Can you guys hear me in the back? The people in the front row answered for you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay, all right, perfect. We are so pleased to have this moment with you. What you're going to hear tonight represents a reevaluation. This music has just crossed into its second century. So jazz music, the recorded aspect of this music has existed for 102 years. And so this creates a profound opportunity to reevaluate what we're communicating, why we're communicating, and who we are communicating with. So a big part of what's happening right now, you are also a huge part of building. This is a music that has existed for a very long time and has a very specific pedigree. And a lot of times, as soon as you say the word jazz, everyone in the room becomes a fucking scholar. Right? And, you know, that's not what this music is about. You know, obviously, the tenets of this culture of music are pretty beautiful and really advanced. But this music's power exists in its ability to communicate. And so we want you to have a good time. We want everyone to know that you are free, you are safe. If you want to scream, if you want to throw shit, you're free. And you can have a good time, you know. We don't want this to have that air that as soon as you say jazz, everyone has to be on their best behavior. Everyone in this room is free. All right? All right. So we're going to continue with the music. The first composition that you heard is called Ajua's Arrival. This is a brand new one. It's only 2 days old. I wrote it a couple days ago. And so we're going to continue now with some music from Ancestral Recall. This one is called I Own the Night.
To do that. If you want to see the whole concert, you can go to Bimhuis TV and watch it for free. It's a wonderful concert, but I just wanted to start with his vision on jazz and how the audience and the surrounding is a big part of the whole thing. Well, the Bimhuis is one of Europe's leading jazz clubs. It's rooted in Dutch activism, maybe Amsterdam activism. It started in 1974, and there were a bunch of great musicians who decided at that time that there were no rules in music. It's called free impro, and it became world famous, the Amsterdam improv scene. Like the Instant Composer Pool, Willem Breuker, De Volharding, Misha Mengelberg, Leo Kuipers, Han Benning. And they're still famous all over the world. So these musicians started a community. They got an old building somewhere in the center of Amsterdam, and they started to improvise. The Bimhuis became a national treasure, I think, not only Amsterdam, but much wider and broader. And in 2005, we moved to this new building with great sound, hospitality, a restaurant, a bar, very important, the bar, because that's where people meet and talk about what they've just experienced. And this building is especially built for jazz, which is seldom seen, I think, in the world. You have music halls and venues, and then, of course, they program jazz in a part of that venue, but the Bimhuis is built especially and only for jazz, which is unique. I'm going to talk about the art of listening. And it has everything to do with two major themes in my professional life at the moment. One of them is diversity, super diversity, and the other one is new perspectives. Super diversity is a concept from sociological background. It's the idea that there's no culture leading anymore. So no black culture, no white culture, no Chinese culture, no women, men. It's a perfect blend of everything, this super diversity. And I think that is the case right now in the world, super diversity. It's not the case, oh, my English is terrible. I'm much funnier in Dutch, believe me. Of course, the decision makers are still, the group of decision makers is not super diverse, but we have to fight for that to make that happen as well. All right, 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, the Council of Amsterdam asked the Bimhuis to write a new meerjaren beleidsplan. It's a 4-year policy plan in which you have to explain everything you want to do. You have to talk about your ambitions the coming 4 years. And they have a sort of a strategy that you have to think about. It's based on 4 P's. Program, public, audience, partners, and personnel, your organization. And those 4 areas are all connected. It's really a circle. If you change something in one area, then it has an effect on the other. I will start with program, the artistic vision of the Bimhuis. The things that we program are always adventurous, experimental, the best of the world, new stuff. We're on top of it. It's very international, and that hurts as well nowadays in COVID, that we miss all our international musicians coming to our house every other night. We focus on education, we focus on programs online, Bimhuis TV, and we work together with curators in presenting the last, the newest, and the best. But Bimhuis is also a motor, like something that you can turn on and produces things. So we present what's already there, great music, great bands, great projects, and we try to organize and produce our own stuff as well. So when you talk about program and you have to write a plan like that, you have to think about what is jazz, how do we define it? That's something we talk a lot about at the Bimhuis. Well, to define jazz is in a way to do it injustice. In my opinion, it has so many colors, such diversity and such a rich history that jazz is everything at the same time. And especially with globalism and the internet, Everything is possible, and that makes it very rich. That's what's happened the last 10 years, I think the last 15 years, that musicians has been adding every possible thing they like to their music, whether it's Indian ragas or whether it's Ethiopian high-pitched guitar sounds or poetry or electronics, or it's more to modern composing, or it's Brazilian, or it's free improvised music. Everything is possible, and sometimes even in one piece, sometimes even in one song. And we present all that at the Bimhuis, a very wide scope of music. But I found it personally very important that when you see a band performing on stage, that this art of listening is happening on stage as well. Sort of a true conversation happening between musicians. I can really enjoy a musician not playing, but just standing there and listening to his fellow musicians and being a part of that whole story that's been told. So finding these new musical languages truly emerge in a field of super diversity where not one style or concept is leading. So I think that jazz itself is the art of listening. That's what jazz is about. So we wrote down some guidelines for ourselves, but also to present this wide program, because if you present such a broad variety of program, how do you reach your audience then? So we said jazz is 4 things, 4 sort of guidelines that we have at the Bimhuis. Jazz is based on tradition, but it changes by the day. So this dynamic is a very stable thing. Every day is different, and we show the latest. And that's what we do every day since 1974. And even our reflection on cultural heritage changes. The way you feel about some music that was very popular once, it fades away, it comes back, it fades away, it comes back. So that's also very interesting, the role of the history in present music. 2, jazz can be both complicated and accessible, even within one concert. You can have a very nice, easy groove and crazy scales above it. That's a left hand doing weird stuff and concepts and that are so complicated, and still it can be accessible. We think that jazz is, I told many times, is everything. It's very super diverse, and jazz reflects on a changing world, and that's why I showed you Christian Scott Atunda Ajua, because the Bimhuis comes from this area of activism in 1974, and we still find it important at the Bimhuis that music somehow reflects on the world. Not really as a narrative, but as a sort of an abstract reflection. I mean, there's so much happening in the world now with Black Lives Matter and Me Too and with Corona and what's happening in the United States and our environment. And I think it's very important that somehow you feel that reflection on what's going on in the world in an abstract way, or maybe a narrative way. But this sense of that this music needs to be heard now, that's a great feeling. And we think it's very important. So from these 4 lines that I just told you about, we try to connect to the public, to the audience. We use program lines, and from these program lines we make a connection with the audience. And you can think of that as a sort of an axle. Is that the right English word? An os. So you have music for jazz beginners, people that start with jazz, that come from, for instance, pop music, or they've listened to samples online, to the more advanced listener, or to the experts or the pros or the musicians themselves, and everything in between. And even somebody in the audience that is in the Bimhuis for the first time can be an advanced listener already, because maybe he's crazy about minimal music, about, you know, Philip Glass or something, and he thought, well, I'd like to hear more about jazz, but I think this can really work for me. So people come from all sorts of communities entering jazz, and we want to help them to get into this wonderful music. So it's very important to help them listen. And you, as musicians, you can do that. You can tell them what's in your mind. You can tell them about the process of your music. You can tell them how your music developed or what it's about. They want to know. I talk to my audience all the time, and they're very curious. So what happens in your head when you play that solo? What do you think about? So where's the song about? What's it about? Where did you write it? How did you write it? So all these things make it more easily for audiences to step into your world. We at the Bimhuis, we try to do that with Bimhuis talks, podcasts, give them extra, invite them with newsletters and tell them about this wonderful music that we present. Yeah, I'd like to show you a bit of that. Are you all still awake?
How about a big hand for Becca Stevens?
Can I sit here? Okay.
Becca, what's your favorite kind of tea?
Depends on what mood I'm in and what time of day it is. But for a show, I like green tea with honey.
Okay. And I saw you downstairs in the catacombs of the Bimhuis. You were walking with headphones on and doing a warm-up. Is it the same warm-up you do every time, or is it different?
No, the warm-up is like very intuitive, just kind of, I'll stay in the part of my voice that feels like it needs attention.
Okay.
And in the headphones, it was like a meditation podcast. So it was completely unrelated.
So the meditation podcast, there's somebody's talking? Okay. And what kind of things are being told here?
It depends, like, what you choose, like
Yeah.
which one you, but that one was about gratitude.
Okay. Does it differ a lot what kind of, what part of your voice needs attention for yourself?
Yeah. Today, my voice is tired, and I noticed that it's particularly, so there's a thing called a break between your like registers and between your head voice and your chest voice.
Yeah.
And today my break is particularly cranky. So like if I'm, it will pop over the break, and so I was smoothing that.
Right.
And trying to find the places that felt rough and smooth them over.
As you seem, when I see you perform, you seem to me like a person that is...
Why I wanted to show you this. He starts with T, which is just T. And within 30 seconds, they're talking very technically about the voice, the instrument, what's happening. And she's pulling me into her world immediately. And I found it very interesting. So if you tell people about your saxophone, about the reeds you use, about the way you study, I think that's all very interesting for audiences to listen to. They want to know. And you can use that in your benefit. Is that a... Oh, Engels. All right, so I'd like to tell you, give you something about marketing. Marketing is not selling your product. Marketing, art marketing, is about telling your story. It's about helping your audience to enter your world. And it can be very sympathetic and small. It's about building a community, and you start with your mom. It's about building loyalty. And you're young. If you start doing that now, you'll have a great audience when you're 40. That's true. So just drag them into your world. And don't be shy. People really, I talk to audiences every day. Believe me, they want to know. Because for you, it's very normal to be a musician. But for normal people, it's amazing that you are musicians. They don't understand anything about how do you do it? What goes on in your mind? So at the Bimhuis, we have a responsibility to find new audiences for your music. It's a challenge, but it's also fun. And jazz freaks know how to get in, but new people, they don't necessarily know how to get in the Bimhuis. We learned a lot from a woman named Nina Simon, niet Nina Simone, maar Nina Simon. We listened to a TED talk opening up the museum, and she wrote a book, The Art of Relevance, and I can highly recommend it. She uses a metaphor. She says, when you have a museum or a venue and you want to reach new audiences, you have to build new doors for new people. And you have to ask them, the art of listening, where do you want those doors to be? And how do you want those doors to look? And what do you want to find behind those doors? And it's different. It's different for students from the conservatory. It's different for children. It's different for people who are used to go in classical concerts. And it's different for people who live in our neighborhood. They all need different things. And the only way to find out is to ask them. So this book about the art of relevance, about building metaphorical new doors for new audiences, is very interesting, because you have to let go as a, where am I? Oh, yeah. You have to let go of your own ideas, and you have to ask other people to make their own event in your house. So let other people decide what is good. Of course, my programmer knows what's good, but I can make some room in my house, in my venue, for other people to build their own evening. Ambassadors, people who are deep into certain communities. Because quality has many faces. If you want to attract new audiences, you have to try new forms, new standards of quality. And you have to really listen to new audiences, to new ambassadors, new artists, give them a voice, and most importantly, give them a budget. And then bear the criticism, because there will always be people who say, this is not real jazz. But these are young people, for instance, and they produce their own evening, so they can decide what their definition of jazz is. And they do it very successfully, I can say. So the third P is partners. And this is also very important for you, because you will be dealing with partners all your life. One way to reach new audiences or to gain new perspectives is working with a variety of partners. Bimhuis works with the Roots Festival for African music, the Cello Biennale, the Flamengo Biennale, Duke, and Space is the Place. These are two fine, you should check them out on the internet, fine organizations, very intelligent communities that have their own audiences, and we invite them in the Bimhuis. Amsterdam Jazz Fest, a minimal music festival, ADE. We even have this huge dance festival. Amsterdam Andalusisch Orkest. And so on and so on. They're small, they're large, they're international, they're Europe, they're national, and they're from small communities around our building in Amsterdam. Our main partners are Muziekgebouw. You know what it is, right? Muziekgebouw and the Conservatoire in Amsterdam. We love to have our students in the house. There's a BC, before Corona, there's a jam session in the Bimhuis every Tuesday night. Please feel free, if this whole thing is over, to join. And it's very crowded. We have Rough Diamonds, and that's a presentation of the newest bands from the Conservatoire in Amsterdam. And we're very proud to have them. Because the thing is, they teach us a lot. They bring in new stories, new audiences, of course, but also new bands that we have to listen to. Bringing me to the fourth P, personnel, or an organization. This is also very important for you, because if you're in a band, your band is an organization as well. The Bimhuis finds it very important to produce. So we have composition assignments, all sorts of things. And one of those, this English sometimes. Do you have that too? You're from Italy, Spain, whatever, huh? Sometimes you have a brain freeze. Anyway, I'll start with Bimhuis Productions. It's a production house in which so many productions are combined. And I just want to show you 2 small videos of our wonderful talent. He's called Tijn Wiebinga. He's a arranger, composer, musician, and his goal in life is to work with a 10, 11-piece band, make music, write music, and then drag that music through electronics. It's very interesting what he's doing. I have another small video of his working process.
Ja, ik noem het eigenlijk een beetje een escape room spel, maar dan muzikaal. Voor elke muzikant heb ik een ander improvisatieschema gemaakt. Even kijken. Hier. Iedereen krijgt een eigen patroon. En volgens dat patroon moet hij dan door een soort van labyrint gaan van noten. En op die manier wordt hij uitgedaagd om op een andere manier te improviseren. Waardoor dus niet hun eerste ideeën naar voren komen, maar dat ze echt iets moeten doen volgens dit schema. En dan met al die improvisatiestukjes ga ik weer helemaal nieuwe composities maken. En het uitgangspunt daarvoor is dat ik geen inspiratie haal uit dingen van de buitenwereld, maar echt van de muzici zelf. Van de muzici met wie ik werk. En dat zijn nogal goede muzici met hele bijzondere eigen karakters. Dus ik ben nog wel even bezig om dat allemaal uit te werken.
Wow, man. So nice. F sharp D C, F sharp D C, or you turn this around like that.
In het voorjaar ga ik toeren met Amok. Al dit materiaal wat ik nu opneem ga ik gebruiken om nieuwe composities te schrijven voor die tour. En als we die tour hebben gedaan, dan gaan we in de zomer hier het hele album opnemen.
And of course, none of that could happen, which is very sad, of course. Huh? But this is what we do, and so Tijn is our leading star. But as you can see, he brings in a whole generation of young musicians and young audience as well. He's building his own audience as he's working through his projects. Well, the second thing I'd like to tell you about my organization has to do with the art of listening is the Bimhuis TV. I told you about it before. It's an international platform and we stream many concerts. And by doing that, we help building new audiences for jazz, we hope. We're very active in many, many networks and you should do that too. Maybe step into a board of something or your local music school or something like that. We talk, we listen, and that is not an abstract thing. It's very clear. We can help whenever we can. We work together. And Bimhuis takes responsibility for the sector, for the whole community, the music community as a whole. BC, of course, because that's what we're doing. That's our DNA, but at the moment it's very difficult to do that. We will start a young advisory board. We listen to young people. What do you think about a program? What do you think about our marketing communication? So, and we have traineeships for young programmers, because we think that young programmers should be next. We share budget and we share our network. And we work on education. We have new shows. They're very limited shows for kids, jazz shows for kids. So we invented groove-based. Well, check it out on the internet. It's really fun. And then I want to talk to you about my staff. 35% of the staff working at the Bimhuis has a non-Dutch background. It's 50-50 male, female. It's young, old, and it has certain education levels. And I think that is very, very important, bringing me back to this new perspectives and this super diversity. We organized a feedback system, a safe environment, and true participation. We care about development and coaching. And this is very important for you and your band and your project when you're a band leader, when you're the leader of a project. I strongly advise you to look for new perspectives. Don't play just with your friends who you know for a long time, but invite other people to your community. Give them space and value their contribution, even if you don't really understand it all the time. And we really have to talk about women in jazz. Embrace your female musicians. They have a different perspective on music. And that's what we need. Because half of your audience, and if you're good looking, even more, will be female as well. And for women, it's also very important to see women on stage as a role model, but also for a true sense of recognition, herkenning, what's that? Help us even. Recognition? Yeah. And if you are able to invite different cultural backgrounds into your projects, it makes your music richer, truly richer, and you will reach new audiences. I have a memory of Neil Wallace. He is the programmer of the Doula, formal programmer of the Doula, and he told me once that if he had the choice between 2 string quartets to program, both equally good, both equally interesting material, and he was reading in a bio that one of them was giving free concerts to elderly people with Alzheimer problems, then he would definitely choose that one. Just because he has the feeling that these musicians are more rooted in society, are more deeper personalities. So you don't have to do that, but it's just an example to show you that if you're really open up a bit more than just 4 musicians in a quartet against a brick wall, then different things can happen for you. People look at you in a different way, and your audience will expand. Your story will be getting more interesting, deeper, and more connected to the world, which is very important right now. And it will make it easier to build a community. So please listen to the world, listen to your own voice in everything you do, not just artistic, in everything. Put your art in the world, make connections, and please go talk to your audience. There's no backstage. Go to the bar and listen. So, are there any questions? Yeah.
Before Corona, how easy was for the jazz sector, from your perspective, to survive without the help of the government? Because that's a struggle that I feel myself as a jazz musician, that eventually, like, other genres of music can really be financially independent, and sometimes our genre is not, especially for like bigger groups and this kind of stuff. From your perspective, how does it work? I mean, I think, your perspective, I think it's the highest perspective in the Netherlands in terms of jazz concerts, and also one of the highest in Europe. So I was curious about it.
So your question is, how does it work to finance jazz music? Right?
Yeah, and if jazz music can finance itself in a way.
Yeah, it's both. It's both. I think as jazz music itself is very diverse, very broad, the Bimhuis was able to gain 65% of their income themselves by ticket sale, restaurant, bar, commercial, venue, rental, etc. And everything that we earned went straight back into the arts. But of course, the Bimhuis is very blessed to have a subsidy from the government. I think that if you are looking for ways to get your project funded, You need to organize yourself. You have to have a stichting, or I can tell you all about it. And I can also explain why that's important. And I can also tell you that it's fun to do it. Because if you have a foundation, a stichting yourself with board members, and you choose them well, they can really help you. And it's some form of entrepreneurship that might be gentle. So, but you have to start with that one day, and you have to be prepared to lose sometimes, and then, yeah. But there are project subsidies and
I know about
yeah,
it.
oh, you know, okay, yeah. And I think that the jazz community is a very fluid community, a very with a high impact on all other musical developments, but the scene itself is very small, and so we need to fight maybe harder. So yeah, we need to get more. We need to turn the system a bit around so that we can have access to relatively small amounts of money that make it work. Yeah. But the Bimhuis is very fortunate, of course. Yeah.
I'm curious that if you were sitting in this chair and you would now watch the director of the Bimhuis, what kind of advice would you give us in these difficult times to stay creative during this period? Because I think jazz has learned a lot from its history. It was always kind of damaged, and it's known hard times. So what would be your advice to us?
Well, I find that very difficult to answer, because I think the heart of music has been crushed by this corona. The heart of making music is making it together, presenting it to your audience and experiencing it together. And this together is not possible now. So that makes us so sad. The only thing is to write about it, maybe, to put your sadness into music. Because I think there's no, this problem is huge for me. I mean, sometimes I feel so lonely, and you must feel the same. So, yeah, write about it. Put your feelings into music, or your anger. That would be my advice. And take good care of yourself. Make long walks, eat well, don't drink too much, and get out and meet people, meet friends as much as possible. Be as social as possible, as allowed. Yeah, but it's a tough situation.
And sorry, if this situation that's very bad is over, how could we? I think there are multiple ways, but how could we reach Bimhuis?
Oh, by emailing me.
With our projects.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And we're sort of an industry as well. We have 400 seats in a normal situation. So if you're not really well known and you won't, and for you it's not possible to reach 400 people yet, but maybe we have other projects or forms, or we have lots of stuff for young people. Young musicians and young talents, and of course we're not it's limited, but yeah, I'm always open to meeting you, of course.
Nice, cool.
It's not a castle, okay. Although it's a bit high above the ground, which I hate.
We also had a YouTube question, Mijke.
Oh.
It's by Bob Wijnen, and he says, the idea behind super diversity sounds very positive, but aren't you afraid that all music will become very similar if there is no cultural dominance in jazz? It started as an American art form, ...
Kan je nog één keer die ene... Ja, Bob. Hi, Bob. Kan ik de vraag nog ergens lezen? Want het was wel veel.
Hij staat hier, maar... So the idea behind super diversity sounds very positive, but aren't you afraid that all music will become very similar if there's no cultural dominance in jazz?
On the opposite, Bob, cultural diversity is such a rich palette of colors and sounds and yeah. I think maybe it started in America, which is, I mean, it's very European as well, jazz. Debussy is also many, I don't know, I think jazz is not anybody's possession. You can form it yourself.
Yes, I have a question. What would be the most important aspects and things to pay attention to when wanting your project to be recognized, seen, when wanting it to be also funded? So from the artistic point of view, what artists should pay attention to the most when presenting the project?
Yeah, the two things. One thing is your music, the project itself, and the other thing is the reflection on it, the language, how you talk about it, how you present it, and that's something you have to learn, to tell what it's about, which is very difficult because music is not a narrative art form. It's when you write a theater play, it's much more easy to tell what it's about. So you have to find a way to do that in words. And I realized that it's a challenge for musicians because words is not your it's not your paint. Musical notes is what you paint with. But sometimes you have to put it in writing or think about it and then maybe bring it to somebody else who can write it better. Another thing that will help is to let you interview. So you ask somebody to interview you about your music, you tape it and you write it down. Then you are forced to tell about what it's about, and then you will find out that you know a lot more than you think. Yeah, so that would be my tip. And the other thing is how you relate to audiences. How do you want to get in touch with them or build your community, and have an idea of what your audience might look like, which is also. Well, if you go to the bar and talk to your audience, then you know them.
Thank you.
All right, I see we have some more questions on YouTube. This is by Enrico Lenoci. What are your favorite, let's say, 10 records? Do you play an instrument? And who's your favorite piano player? So those are actually 3 questions. So, favorite 10 records? 10 records? 10? Yeah, 10. Maybe make it 3. Or 5.
All right. My favorite piano player is maybe Omar Klein. I listen a lot to country music. I'm crazy about Dolly Parton, Randy Newman. Somebody's leaving the room. Oh no. For me, jazz music is something that I enjoy enormously in a live situation. And I find it more difficult to put on a jazz record because I listen to classical music, Spanish guitar music, whatever. But I prefer jazz live because it's all about the energy. And then it can be rough, it can be smooth, it can be everything. And I like it. I like everything, yeah.
Do you maybe have some thoughts about reaching new and maybe young audiences for jazz?
Of whether I have thoughts about reaching young audiences? Yeah.
Yes.
Asking young programmers to program at the Bimhuis, asking students from the Conservatoire to present their own nights at the Bimhuis. We had the super session. It started at 11 and it ended at 7 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't there, of course, far too late for me, but I've been told it was a huge success. So if you program young musicians, they will bring their young audience. And you have to do something with the marketing, of course, because I can reach you on other channels than older people. So that means that I have to have young people at the marketing department as well. So it's a whole variety of things you need to do. And it's our main goal to bring this lovely music to the next generation.
Maybe another question. What I find is that young people often bring audiences which consist out of young musicians, but how to reach young non-musicians? Do you have some special thoughts about that particular subject? How to reach young non-musicians?
Yeah, this is where the partners come in. I mean, at the Bimhuis we work together with the Rietveld Academy. So students that have a very interest in I once visited the Rietveld Academy for, to talk with the director for a partnership. And then I went to have a coffee in the cafeteria at the Rietveld, and they were playing some hardcore jazz over there. So there's so many young people out there who are interested in music, in all sorts of music. So you have to find partners, and you can do that in your own environment as well. Invite your friends, invite people from... Yeah, you have friends who are not musicians as well. So that's why you start.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see if we have another YouTube question. Bob Wijnen had a follow-up statement. He said, true, but what I mean is, doesn't it become one big fusion without much difference?
Well, I think the fusion, yeah, I mean, you students, as you are all sitting here, you're from all over the world, right? So, and you are with 20 students right here now, and I see 3 women, right? So that was different in my time. And so you all bring new perspective to your music, to the music as a whole. And if you're open to, it's not just a fusion, it's coming from the heart of people. If you, yeah. Like in Tijn's band, there was this guy playing trombone. He had a hip-hop outfit. I massively enjoy that. It has a sort of a fun feeling, energy. And I'm sure he listens to hip-hop all the time. So if you are what you are, and you bring it into the music, then it's not a fusion, then it's just who you are, and it's a new perspective. It's very serious, and it's very... meaningful. I think fusion is if you just blend 2 things together and mix it and see what's happening. But if it's from within you, because you are from Iceland, or you with the silence and the cold and the poetry that's that's happening in Iceland, then you have a different perspective. It could be so interesting. Yeah.
Hi, I would like to know, because we all know it is so hard to judge music objectively. I mean, there is like subjective taste, and the way you experience music has such a big influence on the decision making and what you choose. And you, as a decision maker in programming, how do you detach from your subjective taste while choosing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you actually think about okay, I don't like this music, or I don't like it. I don't experience it the way I feel good about it. But I still see the quality, and I still gonna program, even if I never would listen to it, even on I don't know.
Of course.
Yeah. So you consciously think about, and yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not the programmer, I'm the director. So my job is more about the organization, the politics and the funding. And the programmer, Frank van Berkel, he makes the decisions. He has a required taste, I think. And he's also building projects, putting musicians together. But once you hear a musician on stage, and he before Corona, he was everywhere all the time, Europe, the United States, everywhere. You can recognize quality, even if you don't really like it yourself. If something's happening in the room, then you just have to admit that that is quality. So I think it will show itself. And if you're a professional programmer, you can do that. And the program is also thinking about the audience back home. Is this new trumpet player something that needs to be heard in Amsterdam? So he has different, motives to book somebody. And then there's this whole idea of quality. Things I really liked 20 years ago, did I ever like that back then? Take the band Supertramp. I was crazy about Supertramp. It's a really bad band, right? Anyway, this whole concept of quality is changing in itself as well. So, yeah, we will always have arguments about it, discussions about this whole concept of quality. But I can assure you that everything you hear in the Bimhuis has this great quality, meaning listening to each other, great artistic ideas, produced in the center of this time area, has a sense of urgency, great musicianship, all these things, and many more, communication with the audience. Well, yeah, that's all quality.
No more questions from the room? Let me check YouTube.
See if Bob has something to say.
We have a question by Fran Akamer. Before internet and recordings, music probably had a bigger impact and another role in society. What do you think is the role of music for society nowadays?
Well, I don't think that music had a bigger role in society before internet. When I look at young people, I mean, my daughter's music is everything to them, all day, every day. If you walk in the street, you see all these people wearing these white things coming out of their ears. I mean, music is so important, and it will be. Yeah, and I hope so. I only hope that it will be more important in times of crisis, because maybe we all find a way to get comfort from music now. There's one more question. Oh.
Yeah, there's one more by Keith. What are the major advertising models of Bimhuis? And how successful is the Bimhuis card scheme in terms of retaining audience? I don't really know what he means by card scheme. So what are the major advertising models of the Bimhuis? Keith, what do you mean by card scheme?
Talking about marketing, of course we have content is very important. As I explained before, our audience is very curious, wants to know, so it's about storytelling. That's one part of it, and the other part is data. we are investing in CRM systems, and it really works. Before Corona, we had our best month. February 2020 was our best month in 10 years.
What is this system? What is this system?
CRM. Yes. What is that now? I use it all the time. It's a data system that you can link your postal code to. Well, I'll tell you all about it. I know how it works, but I don't know what the CRM means. Custom related something.
Speak it to me. I'll read the question. Customer relationship management.
Customer relationship management, right. Yeah. We can really define your taste. If you come to guitar concerts all the time at the Bimhuis, we can recognize you and we can send you a personalized email like, we have another great guitar player coming up. And so you build your audience. It's no rocket science, I think.
And Keith was indeed talking about the membership, the Bimhuis membership. So his question is, how successful is that in retaining an audience, the membership?
Well, the membership is very important. It's the heart of the Bimhuis community. Many people who are in love with the Bimhuis started in 1974. They have that membership, and they come regardless what we program. So it's not so much in building a new audience, but it's very important in connecting with our core community.
During Corona time, we've all been watching concerts online, also on Bimhuis TV. But my feeling was that it would never be like, marketing-wise, it would never be a good outcome for music. Just because online there's already so much free and good material. So I was like, okay, Chick Corea can sell 100,000 tickets for $2 for his concert in his living room, but how can I, in a world where live music is kind of not a very good choice anymore, reach my audience? And I know maybe it's not really the problem of Bimhuis, but probably you guys have been thinking about it. I don't know.
Well, we've come to the conclusion that online concerts are not the real thing. So if you listen to Bimhuis TV, we have excellent audio. So please you should put your headphones on, and then the concert can really come close to you. But it's not an actual concert because you're not in the room. So I think the internet is a way of getting in touch with your audience. But it's just not the real thing. So you should work on that, but it's not a replacement. Also not financially.
Sorry, it's already said questions from me today.
Are there any more questions from the room? I cannot see that from here, so. Yeah, sure. Question by Nicolo. Can you give some examples of what characteristics could make the Bimhuis interested in a project? So what characteristics make a project interesting for the Bimhuis?
From a point of view from the production house, maybe?
Yeah, from your point of view.
Yeah, what is great? All of these things, whether it's new, great musicians, fantastic bands, interesting research. Well, it depends. There's not a format. I mean, you know it when you know it. when you read it and you think, well, this is really interesting. Yeah.
All right. And another question is, can we have your email address and
Yeah.
put it in the group?
Of course. It's Mijke, M-Y-J-K. Nou, hij moet het even op zijn Nederlands spellen. M-I-J-K-E @bimhuis.nl. It's quite simple, eh?
So
Although
easy.
I'm not in the office.
Gonna be a lot of emails, Mike.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, any more questions? We still have 3 minutes left, so. And online, can you show me the YouTube, Simone?
There's somebody with a question.
Like right now in the situation of not being able to perform live as much and having very limited audiences, isn't it scary that this can affect the future of the music? And yeah, what could be the perspectives if, for instance, the situation stays like this for a while, like, or that people have to shift to the live streaming much more, or have these small audiences for not, half a year, but 2, 3, 5 years. So what could be the perspectives and what would be the plan for that, basically?
Well, all my hope is focused on the vaccine or on the sneltesten. Yeah. And in the meantime, we just have to endure this. But my biggest fear is that there will be a whole generation of new artists and new audience, because, they're inseparable, will be, wounded in somehow. When we can open up again at the Bimhuis, I will definitely take my responsibility for that part. And I hope you will all find ways to be resilient in dealing with this crisis. But yeah, I think it's the worst for young people, for young musicians, and therefore for the refreshment of art itself. Or maybe your generation will do something amazing with this crisis. I just hope so.
Yeah, I think right now when a lot of great musicians are losing a lot of concerts, I think for young musicians, just graduating musicians, just starting musicians, it becomes really difficult to reach the stage, because I guess the competition can become even bigger because there are so few places people can perform.
Yeah, so maybe you can organize your own concerts, maybe for 4 people in the room or 6. Yeah. I mean, money-wise, it's terrible, but if you can afford it, if you can, earn your money elsewhere in the meantime, between practicing and writing and making music, if you can now and then connect with a audience and organize it yourself or with your community, maybe that's because, coming Saturday we have 1 concert for 30 people in the Bimhuis. Normally we have 400 tickets to sell, and we're very insecure whether we'll have that concert the Saturday after again, right? Because it's all very insecure. So I think the only thing you can do is, in keeping up the performance skills, is maybe perform for 3 or 4 people, which is very scary, by the way. Yeah. But I can also understand if you don't have the energy to do that. But maybe that's a good thing to do.
Thanks.
All right, Mike, unfortunately we have to stop. So thank you very much for coming here. Everybody give a big hand to Mijke Loeven from the Bimhuis.
It was a big pleasure. I'm really moved by your art of listening to me.